Hello and welcome to this wonderful conversation with Anna Lovind. I'm just going to quickly switch over to my email so I can read Anna's bio to you because I don't want to get any of it wrong. Um, Anna Lovind is a feminist writer who believes in women's creative freedom and the power of our voices and stories. Anna left a career as an editor at a major publishing house. She moved deep into the forests of Sweden and set out to build a business that supports her own and other women's pursuit of a meaningful and sustainable creative life. Since then, she has published her book, The Creative Doer, A Brave Woman's Guide from Dreaming to Doing. She's coached best-selling authors, helped launch solo entrepreneurs into orbit, and guided creatives from all over the world to go from dreaming to doing through her courses and workshops. It was absolutely amazing to be in conversation with Anna. In many ways, it felt like we were only really scratching the surface, and there were so many things that we could have done a deep dive into. There's a wonderful moment about halfway through where Anna's cat manages to disconnect the internet. I haven't bothered editing any of that out because it just was part of the conversation, and I feel like it was a really beautiful part. I have no doubt that the cat was bringing medicine that we both needed, and perhaps you needed too. So, in this wonderful conversation, we talk about the power of asking for help, um, about neurodivergent living, how that impacts business, mothering, creative endeavours. We touched on the fact that there's something about being in your 40s as a neurodivergent woman. Both Anna and I have experience of late diagnosis with our neurodivergence, but how there is this point that you get to where you just don't have it in you anymore to keep living or working the way that you once did. And I especially loved when Anna shared her wisdom around this idea of standing with yourself. And it just felt like really grounding and potent kind of wisdom. So at the end of this wonderful conversation with Anna, Anna shares about the Creative Doer, which is her year-long membership and course for this incredible course that she offers for women, maybe not women, not just women actually, it might be men also, I'm not sure, um, who want to kind of bring their creativity into life, into doing, and do it in a way that is right for them. She also shares her offering for Ignite, which is a kind of a lower investment membership space, lower investment in terms of money, time, and energy, but is there to create community and really support you in the ways that you need it when you don't have a lot to bring to it. And finally, and all these links are with this video, finally, a crowdfunding campaign that other people have set up for Anna as a gift to her. Because at the time of this conversation, Anna is facing the potential end of her business due to Swedish law requiring a certain level of turnover in order to be able to maintain your business. I hope that you enjoy this conversation. I absolutely loved getting to know Anna and speaking to her, and I will see you on the other side.
Wonderful. So, hello, Anna. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to talk to you today.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So this is the first time that, well, other than our little chat just now before I pressed record, this is the first time we've ever connected in person. And I'm guessing really before now, I have just been one of probably many people who every now and then replies to an email saying, oh, this sounds amazing kind of thing. So I'm just kind of aware that I probably therefore know way more about you than you know about me, which is the opposite to how I'm not normally when I'm in kind of conversations. It tends to more be the other way around. So, but this is great. I'm really looking forward to this. So as I was saying to you, but I want to make sure everyone else knows, I had a quick look back through my emails to work out when I first obviously must have found out about you and signed up to your mailing list. And it was back in 2016. So 6 years, which is really incredible, because one of the things that I love about your emails, and hopefully people listening to this will go and sign up, is they have such a gentle, nourishing energy to them. You know, like even when you're selling your kind of your services or your offerings, there's still this gentle, nourishing energy. And I have always really appreciated that. So I want to just start with some, sharing that gratitude.
Well, thank you.
Ahead of our conversation, I would love us both to have the opportunity just to check in. How are you in this moment coming into this call? What might you be bringing with you into this space? Like, what would feel good for you just to check in with? And then I will check in with my stuff.
Well, I'm in a time in my life, and both personal and in my work, where there's a lot of things going on and a lot of things that are quite challenging that are going on. So that's definitely present with me right now. And I don't have, like, I seem to lack that ability to like present otherwise or pretend otherwise. So where I'm at is what I'm coming with. And I think that's true today as well. I'm a bit tired, a bit, my world's a bit up and down. But I'm also happy to be connecting with you, because that is, in these times such as these, that is the greatest comfort I find, to connect with other people and support each other and so on. So I think I'm coming here with all of it. Yeah.
Thank you. So my check-in, I feel like I'm in a great space, but I feel like I'm in an odd space. So I'm just coming into my inner autumn. My bleed is due in about 6 days. So I know that normally at this time my energy would be kind of just slowly starting to tail off. But because I got COVID on day 1 of my current cycle, which also happened to be the new moon, something about this particular cycle feels just, so different. So when I would have had growing energy, I didn't. I had the crazy mental and physical fatigue that came with COVID. And so I'm emerging out of the mental and physical fatigue of COVID at a time when in my cycle I would be becoming more inward. So I'm noticing those kind of it doesn't feel like conflict, but I am just aware that is a bit of a conflict. And I really feel right now that I'm being invited frequently to ask, am I giving myself time to rest? Am I pacing myself? The answer is often no. Also, in this moment, I, as a mother, am very aware that my youngest son, who is 16, just 16, less than a month ago, is going off by himself to get the tram, to go to the cinema, to meet up with some friends. And it's the first time that really he's done anything on that level of independence. He has once before got the tram by himself and met his brother in town to then go on somewhere. But so that just feels, I don't even know what the word is. I'm just aware that that's very present. I can hear him right now, just kind of getting himself ready to go. And I guess as a mother, it's just that transition time where up until now, I've held all of the logistics around everything. I've held all of the mental load. I've managed the practicalities. And so now it's starting to hand that over and really trusting that he will be able to say to me, yes, I've got this, or no, that's too much. I still need your support. So I've got that with me, but it's also exciting. It's exciting. It's exciting seeing my boys move out of, well, I mean, they're not children anymore, but kind of move out of adolescence into young adulthood. It's also very scary. So talking of scary things and uncomfortable things, we are here because you sent out this incredibly vulnerable, courageous email a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, anyway, very recently, sharing that you're facing the end of your business, which is to do with Swedish law and the requirements of Swedish law to keep your business running, if that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you'd like to just share a little bit more about that, but also there are two things, I guess, that really come through for me is what your experience has been in terms of kind of the power of asking for help, and as well as financial flow, which I really hope you've received in abundance. What other kind of gifts have you received through this process of reaching out in that vulnerable way?
Yes. Yeah, so the situation is just like you describe. I'm facing the potential end of my business. Still have not given up on that. I'm still doing what I can to save it, but that is a potential outcome right now, and it has to do with me being away from the business for quite some time due to a second round of clinical burnout, which has a lot to do with me discovering very late that I'm neurodivergent, autistic, and with ADHD, as well as parenting children who have the same diagnosis, and the lack of support, and me also finding myself as a single mother in that situation. And then starting up the business and finding that launching didn't work out as it has before, which took me by surprise. Maybe it shouldn't have, but I've been doing this for a long time, and it's been quite reliable and to some extent predictable in terms of outcomes and revenue and so on. And this time it wasn't. And since I share that, I've heard from a lot of other people in the online business world that there is some unpredictability right now. People's behaviors are changing. The world is in such a strange place right now. So that seems to be a collective thing, not just my experience. But when that came, just like after this long period of sick leave, it hit quite hard. And I was like, I haven't been able to get the business back into black, simply. And when I understood that this was the case and that this is the situation, and this business is my livelihood, this is how I support myself and my kids, it's a big deal. If I lose it, it also has to do with the rights to my work, my books, all the brands and so on, potentially losing that as well, which of course is a huge deal. It's my life's work, basically.
Massive.
Yes, massive. So I felt, first of all, fear and despair and all of that, but then after that, this very strong resolve to do what I can to save it, to turn this around. And what I understood, just coming out of this burnout, it was very clear to me, I can't go into full-on hustle mode and just do my way out of this, which I might have done in the past, just figure something out and work and make it happen. But so what I realized is that if I'm going to have a chance here, I'm going to have to ask for help. I'm going to have to invite people to make this happen with me. If they value my work, or if they want to see this continue, then maybe they also want to be part of finding a solution here. And I mean, that's scary on so many levels. I have, all through my journey as in business and as a writer, it has been my thing to be very open and to share both ups and downs, and to always sort of be generous with my failings and my explorations so that other people can learn from them. And like, that's been a choice for me and something that I'm very willing to do. I've always been very intentional about sharing, like, yes, this is what success looks like, and along with the success comes all of this, all the difficult and challenging and scary stuff, and it all goes together. You can't have one without the other. That's very important for me, because I, like, you know, there's that projection of success and as absence of failure, or absence of fear, or absence of stumbling blocks and so on. And that's not true. So I'm very committed to that. And so I don't think this email I sent with a request for help was out of, like, I don't think people were surprised that I was being so honest about it. But then again, there is something about asking for help in our culture that is so focused on individualism, on sharing, like sharing our, we can share our failures, you know, but only once we've sorted it again, you know, when we can share the successful ending to it as well, then it's okay. But sharing it like this, in the midst of it, when I don't actually know what the outcome will be, that's a completely different thing. And it triggers things in people, it triggers things in me. So yes, that was very much like standing in front of all of you without clothes. That was really the sensation, almost physical discomfort. But also, you know, there's a grace in allowing yourself to be seen, not pretending, not trying to keep up appearances, but just giving you what's true. And leave it in your hands to decide if you are to be involved in this or not, and not like, just, this is what's true right now, this is where I am, and stand with myself in that. I think that's the big deal, because I didn't come to you from a place of like screaming despair. You know, I still stand with myself when I'm writing these things, when I'm sharing vulnerable things. I still, I'm not asking you to support me when I'm not even supporting myself, because that would be out of integrity. I am here willing to do the difficult stuff, willing to show up for myself and for my work, and for you for that matter. And I'm inviting you to do so too, if that feels right for you. But I think that is a very important part of it, because there are so many different ways to ask for help. And it can be received in so many different ways. And I chose to do it this way, the way I've always communicated. Only a slightly more scary topic. And most of those who've read it or heard it have responded with so much support and love, and gratitude also for the fact that I am honest, which is, I mean, which says something about our times. I think that is like an exception.
Yes, that's often my experience as well, is that the responses that I get are often the people saying, you know, got it, you know, thank you so much for, you know, your vulnerability, or just really sharing the realness of things. And I think that there's a lot of very shiny shopfront window display stuff going on out there. And so those of us who do choose to kind of share all of it, or at least all of it that's appropriate to share, you know, I think there is something about that that stands out and really connects with people, because it lets them know that it's safe for them to do the same.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that phrase that you used about, you know, you doing it from a place of standing with yourself. There's something about that just even as you say it, or even as I say it, actually, it's like there's a grounding in that. I'm wondering how that, I suppose what comes through to me is that having gone through my own very deep autistic burnouts, like there are definitely times in my life where, you know, actually I've not even been able to stand with myself. Like it's been enough just to be existing. Like at the very depths of some of my autistic burnouts, I haven't even been able to make myself toast, you know, like I've just lost that level of functioning. And I suppose I just want to, should there be anyone listening to us that feels like, God, I don't even have the energy to stand for myself, I guess I just want to say, I think there are also times when you know, we just actually need other people just to hold us up. You know, when we can stand with ourselves, then let's. But have you had, it sounds like you've had a wonderful response to your email. Do you sense that feeling of being held by the collective, by other women?
I do. I do very much. A lot of people have stepped up and just asked, how can I help? And shared with me how important my work is for them and so on, which is, it matters so much. Even though they're not able to contribute financially, it matters so much to be witnessed in that and to hear about why this work is worth fighting for. It helps me stay motivated. It helps me feel connected, of course, because yes, this is me, this is my business, this is like something that I've created and that I've done for a decade now, almost, but it has grown beyond me. And it has affected so many people who now have their own interest in keeping this alive. It's not just supporting me, it's supporting this work and this. I hear from a lot of women, there's almost only women who come work with me, and I hear from them that no, like this is, your voice is needed in this world. This work of supporting women in their creative work and so on, the way that I do, is needed. This, like at this time in the world, in our times, this is so needed. And that helps me so much, that they see that they see that this is not just, you know, saving my business, even though that's part of it, but it's really, they see the value of something that is sorely missing in our world, and they want to be part of keeping that alive and helping that grow and so on. So those responses are incredibly important. But then, of course, this is also a very practical issue of actually reaching a financial goal, a revenue goal. And that I haven't reached yet. We have a few weeks to go, and I'm carefully hopeful. Like,
what percentage of that goal have you reached so far?
A bit more than half.
Okay.
So there's hope still. And like, I've been invited like this from you to different people who are willing to share my work with like their audience in turn and so on. So, and that will have ripple effects. I know that. So we'll see. Like, I'm holding this very, might sound like a paradox, but I'm 100% committed to fighting for this. And I'm also holding it very lightly. because it's not entirely in my hands.
Mm.
And I've lived long enough, at least, I'm 45, so I lived long enough to know that I don't always know what the outcome is, or what the right outcome is, so to speak. And I'm terrified of losing this business because I have no idea what's going to happen if I do. But I also know that if that happens, I'll likely survive it, and there will be something else at the end of that. And so there's that balancing, that dance between giving it your all and also letting it go all at once. That's the work, I think, almost right now for me. I'm doing a lot of things, but this perhaps is the most important part of the work, to remain in that space where I'm both committed and also willing to have what happens happen.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Can we hop into the topic of neurodivergence?
Yeah, sure.
Your late diagnosis. I realized when I was 40 that I was autistic, and then it was about 18 months later that I received an official. And then I've worked out for myself since, because I can't be bothered to keep going down the assessment route, but I've worked out for myself since that I'm PDA and ADHD. And it's extraordinary for me how many women I'm drawn to, and how many women are drawn to me who also are autistic and often ADHD. Well, what was your journey around that? I mean, you mentioned that your kids are also neurodivergent like me. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about your journey around your discovery of your own neurodivergence, and how that's unfolded in terms of how life looks now that you know.
Well, this is very recent for me. I got this formal diagnosis this fall at 44. After, as so many women do, being in that process with my kids, my eldest kid, first of all, and going through her diagnostic process took a long time. It was almost 2 years from start to finish. I just realized, well, this is how I work too. This is how I function. We're so similar in so many ways. And so we went through her process first, and then right after I reached out for help as well. And once I was really, oh my goodness, I almost expected, I've heard so many bad things about that process. I almost expected I'd be turned away, I'd be misunderstood, all those things. But it was very swift once I took those steps. No questioning at all. They actually thought I was a very typical example of a highly intelligent woman with autism and was ADD, actually, the ADD version of ADHD. So it was like, and there are so many questions answered through this process and through this realization. Many of them that I wasn't even aware of as questions, but once you get the answer, there it is. But I feel like I'm still in that process of understanding, sort of like going through everything backward, like sifting through your life in a way, and reevaluating things like, oh, that's why I behaved like that, or that's why it felt like that, that's why those situations didn't work out, or and it feels like that's, oh my God, it's such an intense process, the way it remolds your whole identity in a way. And I do feel that there is a stripping of shame that feels very important and freeing. Like all those failures turns out they weren't failures. They were just me being different in a world and in a workplace and in a culture that isn't made for people like me. But then again, there's also grief in there for me. Maybe this is common, because I'm also looking at, oh my God, all those years and no support and no help understanding this or getting through life with a brain like mine. Or I'm looking at my daughter and the way I've made sure that she's supported and the way that I'm guiding her through life and school and all the work that goes into that. And that's significant. I mean, anyone who is parenting a neurodivergent child knows that. That is a job in itself. And I'm like thinking, Jesus, I did that without any of the support. And no wonder it went, it didn't go well for me those years, the teenage years as a young adult. It was so difficult in so many ways. And I'm sort of grieving that now, but what would have been possible for me with support? And also I'm trying to bring that to now. I'm like, okay, so what is possible now? If I can start to call in the support that I didn't have then, but that I maybe can have now in different ways. And well, I hope that there is still space to explore that, also within the context of my business, that I didn't discover this too late, so to speak. But that there will be space to explore how can I shape a business so that it is more supportive to me for the way that I function, rather than doing what I've done for so long and what I hear other people share as well, that we try to reshape ourselves to fit into something that is not made for us.
Right.
And I've been in that process for many years, way before I knew about my autism and the rest of it, to I moved from the city because I couldn't function very well in that environment. I moved from corporate world to running my own business because I couldn't function in a workplace. And, I've been parenting in a way that maybe isn't seen as conventional and so on. I've been looking for a life that fits me, that is made in my image, so to speak. But it feels like I didn't have this important piece of the puzzle before. The fact that I'm autistic and that I have ADHD that is such a big part of the pictures. I haven't been able to correctly meet all those needs or understand them or name them before. Now I might be able to do that, and I'm really interested in what will happen then. And I hope I will be able to make those adjustments in time to save my business. Yeah.
One of my kind of special interests is crime drama, and I love crime drama. And when I received my official diagnosis, because I had a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of kind of doubt, I still do every now and then, occasionally, when someone says, oh, you can't be autistic, I don't know, you can make eye contact, or I don't know, whatever it is, but every now and then someone will say something like that, and I have this moment of oh, maybe I'm not. But I remember it was for me, suddenly having the diagnosis was like when you're watching a crime drama and about 3/4 of the way through they're stuck and they don't know, they've got all of this evidence but they can't solve the crime, and then kind of out of nowhere a new piece of evidence suddenly comes, and that piece of evidence is the missing piece, and once that's in place everything slots in and then they solve the crime. And that's what it's been like for me. It's like it was the missing piece of evidence, and suddenly, like you described, I could look back over my life and go, oh my goodness, of course that was difficult, of course that was my experience, that makes sense now, knowing that I'm autistic. And I've made a lot of changes over the last 4 years in terms of how I live my life. I mean, like you describe, a lot of my life was already certainly the way that I was parenting was, you know, when I look at parenting now through the lens of knowing I'm neurodivergent and my boys are neurodivergent, it totally makes sense. You know, there's this way of parenting your children that is so spot on. I mean, for anybody, but certainly for neurodivergent families. And yet, you know, I didn't know that any of us were at the time. So it's been amazing to make consciously make changes that I realize are creating a life or a business or whatever that is right for me. But then there is also this grief that you describe. I mean, that's been, I think sometimes I still experience that grief. One of the things that I'm really offering to both my sons, my eldest son is going to be 18 in the summer, is that they get to step into young adulthood and into independence in their time frame. And I felt like I floundered from about the age of 16 onwards. Like what was being expected of me just felt too much. And I always just felt like I didn't know what I was doing, what I was meant to be doing, if I was doing it right. And I just didn't feel ready to be going on to like the next stage that was expected of me at the age I was, whether that was to do with education or work or relationships or whatever. And so it's a real joy now for me to be able to offer to my boys
Yeah.
Okay, so we dropped out then, and we're now reconnected because Anna's cat managed to disconnect her internet, which is quite an incredible feat. I can vaguely remember where I was, and at the same time I can't remember where I was. But oh yeah, I was talking about this kind of my journey from like adolescence into adulthood, and how I just felt like it felt rushed. I didn't feel ready. I floundered for a long time through my 20s as well. And so it's a real joy to be able to give my boys this opportunity to move into young adulthood, move into independence in their time frame. And whatever that looks like, not to have an expectation of what that looks like. And then as joyful as that is, there is also grief in there that wasn't my experience, that actually I got into some real pickles actually, you know, because I just wasn't quite ready. And of course, my parents did the best with the resources they had, and they didn't have the resource at the time of knowing, you know, about me being autistic and things. So it's a really interesting and at times I think quite difficult journey to navigate the relief and the exhilaration of going, oh my gosh, that's who I am, that makes so much sense, and crikey, that's, you know, 44 years of your life, 41 years of my life of living and not knowing. And that, you know, that's a lot of time. And of course we are who we are because of what we've gone through, but yeah, so I think for me that the choices that I've been able to make over the last 4 years and how life looks now compared to how it looked then, you know, have been so important. Yeah. Do you think that if you didn't know about your neurodivergence, do you think you would be navigating the current threat to your business in the same way? Or do you think you would be going straight back into that hustle mode, even though the consequences of it might be dire?
I think it would be more of a struggle to help because understanding my neurodivergence and the way that it in some ways impairs me in this society, in this world, that has given me some sense of permission to ask for more support and to sort of allow myself to. I think there's also just something about, like you said, this is like 44 years without any support in this regard. Maybe now is the to allow myself that. So I think I'm quicker to ask for help. I probably have, like, I am at a point after a few rounds of clinical burnout, autistic burnout, I know now, and like years of health challenges, and just, you know, all the stuff I brought up before about parenting and becoming a single mother and all of that. It has taken a toll, and I don't even think I have it in me anymore to do that. I don't think I could do it that way. I don't think I could even try, actually. There's just not, like, it's not here anymore. I don't have the fuel for that. And in a way, that's a blessing, because that would be the simpler. I mean, it's exhausting, but in a way it's simpler, because then I wouldn't have to be this vulnerable. I wouldn't have to ask for help. But it would also leave me exactly in the same place as before, you know, trying to work everything out alone without support. And like, I feel like I made that commitment now, knowing what I know now about myself. I made a commitment, like, I'm not going to leave myself without support anymore. I've had enough of that. And it's been so hard, like these 44 years, it's been a struggle, much of it, not all of it. There's been brilliance and love and all of it too, but oh my God, this is like, no, this is personally for me a commitment to ask for help, but it's also in a larger context. Like, this is the world I want to be part of co-creating. I want us to be able to ask for help, and that not being weird or seen as lack of strength, or, you know, we have such weird conceptions, such weird ideas about what strength is and what weakness is, and it serves no one really, except perhaps those few who can make it look like they're doing it all on their own. They're not, no one is, but some people have the privilege of making it look like it. So it's also that, it's also like, I'm going to walk my talk here. I talk about co-creating. I talk about receiving support. I talk about community, all of those aspects as central to a creative, healthy, sustainable life. So, like, I need to walk that talk.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult because everything around us is shaped around completely different beliefs. So there is resistance when we walk in that direction, but it's what I want to. That's how I want it to be. Like, I need to sort of do my way into that world. I think we all have to make those choices, and
I think also there's a part there of really trusting that if that's what has flowed through you as a core set of values and beliefs through who you are and how you experience the world, then there's an invitation to trust that is key. That is the essence of life for you, and probably for so many others. I know for me, within the realm of yes parenting, but the principles of yes parenting I take out into every area of my life, and it's everything comes down to, like, is it a yes to joy, peace, connection, and ease? And finding that yes to joy, peace, connection, and ease doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. You know, sometimes that route is hard or really vulnerable or can feel risky. And I know sometimes for me, it can feel easier to try and appear stronger, or to have it all together, or I don't know, but like those often when we kind of, what am I trying to say here? I feel like I've got multiple things all coming in together. I think the thing that brings us back into community and communion with one another, that brings us into that place of cooperation and collaboration instead of competition, is when, you know, like the values you describe about looking to co-create and be in community with people, and that willingness, you know, to kind of ask for support and to move forwards with support. And you know, I come to that feeling like, well, the way that we collaborate and cooperate instead of compete is to find that yes together, to joy, peace, connection, and ease. But I also totally, you know, agree with you that it goes so against the culture that we are in. And so that sometimes is quite a lot of effort to and energy to keep moving against this kind of tide that's always trying to push at us. And I find it kind of, sometimes I find it bizarre that like often it's the sensitive, often neurodivergent kind of individuals who happen to be those little fish swimming against the tide. Yeah. It's like the big fish are not the ones turning around and saying, let's go the other way. The big fish that have all the strength and the capacity, they're like leading the charge. And it's like the little fish that struggle with the capacity and, you know, maybe don't naturally have the resources available on their own. You know, it's like we're the ones that are trying to go against the tide. But then, of course, as we all come together, then we can, you know, we create our own power to move through the water. But yeah, it's really interesting. So how you have two daughters, is that right? Have I got that right? How old are they now?
15 and 8.
Oh, okay. And how long have you been single parenting?
I've lived alone with them for a year now. But even before then, it was maybe that part of it fell very much on me. So, and the workload has increased for sure. Taking care of every aspect of a home and all of that along with the parenting, but much of the parenting was on me before then as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very vulnerable position to be in, to be a single mother. I think perhaps one of the most vulnerable positions. And I am privileged in different ways. Like I have extended family around me, I have good friends, and I live in a small place where there is like support available from these people in my life. And like, you know, I have resources available like that, but I don't have them in terms of finances and that kind of privilege. I've never had that. And it is incredibly vulnerable to have that responsibility of needing to care for children who need so much more than the average neurotypical kid. Then, I mean, these are generalizations, of course, but as a rule. But there is no support system in place that will help you do that. It's like you have to do that on top of the rest of it, on top of everything else that everyone needs to do. You have to also add this increased load of parenting work. And if you happen to be neurotypical yourself, then it's usually like the things that your kids are struggling with is also the things that you are struggling with. So it's such an incredibly vulnerable position to be in, and that pisses me off like so much right now. Like, what is this? What what is the world we have created when one of the most central aspect of human life, even bringing up new humans, and that is not supported. It's absurd. And it's like it's so easy to put this on myself, like my business is failing, apparently I haven't done something wrong, or I haven't done enough, or whatever. But I'm also looking at it from like a more removed perspective, looking at, yeah, but you're also doing this, and then you're also carrying this burden, and you're extra vulnerable because of this. And then you're also supposed to be able to run a business in a world, in structures, and using tools that aren't created with you in mind, the way you function in mind. Everything is like something that needs to be, we need to adjust ourselves to be able to do. And we need to deal with all these challenges, and just to be able to communicate in our world as an autistic person, for instance, is a challenge. Yeah. That alone is such a challenge. And then like add everything else to it. It's absurd. Looking at it like that, I don't even think this is a failure on my part. I just think it's like, yeah, it was just one thing too much. It is the workload, and not just like the practical workload in the business, but the workload of just being a human, a neurodivergent human in this world, being a parent, being a single parent. It's just too much. For a lot of us, it's just too much.
Yeah. My friend, very, very dear friend of mine, is also in a neurodivergent family, but a two-parent family. And, you know, she will remind me regularly. She's like, B, I just don't know how you do it. Like, because sometimes I'll be like, you know, I'll start beating myself up about not being on top of the laundry, or the house is a tip, or I'm dropping plates that I've been trying to spin in my business in order to do something else. Or, you know, I can often feel like, you know, there's one area where I'm just flailing. And she'll say to me, she'll be like, you're doing this as a single parent, you know, like, and then I'll say, well, because my husband, my husband, who's not the father of my boys, lives 2 houses away, so we don't live together. And then I'll say, but you know, but I've got Green. She said, no, Green doesn't live with you. He's not sharing the parenting. Like, you are doing all of the parenting, you're doing all of the food, you're doing all of the laundry, you're doing all of the mental load, you're doing, you know, trying to manage all of the finances, you've got your business, you've got your animal. Like, when she starts laying it out for me, I'm like, I'm flipping extraordinary. Yeah. Like, to be doing all of this and to be a neurodivergent individual trying to work out how to exist in this world. And I live in a city at the moment, and it's quite densely although it's lovely where I am, it's still quite densely populated. So there's a lot of noise that I'm not in control of, and, you know, all sorts of stuff. I dream of living in the country, or in the middle of the woods. I wouldn't do very well actually in the middle of the woods for very long, because connection and people are so important to me. But to be in the middle of nowhere with enough people around that I could feel connected. But like, you know, I just kind of think, wow, like, I think you have to be, you have to kind of walk this path to really understand how hard it is and how much we are asking of ourselves all the time. And then, of course, you know, the countries are run mostly, but well, certainly the UK is run mostly by men. I don't know about Sweden, but like, the people who are there making the decisions about the infrastructure and stuff are not the people who are needing to be on the receiving end of that infrastructure. And yeah, it's a whole other thing. And I'm aware we've got like 3.5 minutes left. It's a whole other thing that we could like explode out and talk about and try and put the world to rights. But so I want to, you know, I really want to honor your time here. And, you know, I to those people who are listening, I would really love to give them the opportunity to have a really easy way to say yes to supporting you at this point in your business right now and in your life, where, you know, because of Swedish law, you've got a certain amount of money that you have to make by a certain amount of time. So I know that you have 2 very clear offerings that you can share, and that they're at very different price points. So, you know, but I also aware that there is also a crowdfunding opportunity at the moment, which, if that's still open, I can totally share the link to that when I share this talk. So, but do you want to share with people about Ignite and the Creative Doer? Have I got those names right?
Yes, okay. You did. Yeah, it's interesting. I just have to say that before, because when I wrote that first email asking for help, the help I asked for in a way was, come join the course if you had ever planned to. This is the time, or come join this new beautiful offering that I've created. And that's sort of the invitation that I put out there, that this is my work, you can take part of it. This way you can buy my book, or just to get those sales going. But then a few of the participants in my community, the Creative Doer community, on their own initiative started a crowdfunding campaign, which was, that's just asking people for money, which I had not been able to do, because it became so clear to me, that's like next level receiving. I can't even reciprocate, because when you buy something from me, then I'm giving you something too, and I know it's good value, so that's not the same thing. But this is just like, no, they're giving to me. Oh my goodness, I had to sit with that for a long time to just, oh my goodness. But then I realized, well, they are giving it to me. So my job here is to just honor that giving, honor their wish to help, and just receive. But it's been it's been a practice for sure. So, but again, that's the amazing power of community. I didn't ask them to do this. No. They did that from something that we have created, because this community is so valuable. So that was so beautiful. So yes, there's a crowdfunding campaign. I can absolutely share the link to that. And then there are primarily these two ways to work with me, which is the Creative Doer, which is an offering that I've been working on and co-creating with lots of women over almost 7 years now, I think. And it has grown into this beautiful course, which is basically a creative education, learning to go from dreaming to doing in a sustainable and primarily in a sustainable way. And sustainability, from my perspective, is when it suits you and the way you function, when it sort of is based in what resources you have available and the way you prefer and is able to do things, and so on. So it's a deep dive into these concepts that we've been talking about here today. Also the co-creation, this receiving support, asking for support, co-creating with your work as well as with other people, leaning into the supportive community, as well as all those practical aspects, planning and dealing with fear and money. That's part of it too. So there's that. When you join that, you have access to the Creative Doer community for a year, which is where we gather. There are women from all over the world in there. It's a beautiful space, super supportive. And we do monthly live calls and weekly check-ins and all sorts of things to just support that ongoing long-term shift towards a more creative life, a more sustainable life, a more you-centered life in a way. So that's available, and it's a bigger commitment, both energy and time-wise, as well as financially. And so I also have this other offer, which is called Ignite, which is a fairly new thing, and it's a membership of sorts, but the most pared down, like the simplest possible way to do it for all the tired people, for all the people who've done enough courses, for a lifetime, for all the people who don't have time or energy to invest in a long learning process or anything like that, but still long for that recurring connection, long for that help to reconnect regularly with themselves as creatives, with their work, with the fuel we need to be able to continue our work. So it's just regular classes or councils or live calls simply that we do 3 times a month. And that helps us stay on track and stay inspired and stay nourished and stay connected, all of that. So those are the 2 ways to work with me at the moment. So yeah, the invitation is there.
Well, I will make sure that when I share the recording of this talk, that the 3 links are there, and the crowdfunder, as well as the Creative Doer and Ignite. And then when I host this conversation on my website, my brain is just starting to where I host the recording on my website, I will make sure that those details are there also. So yeah, it's been such a pleasure and a joy to talk with you today. I mean, I kind of feel like we've only just kind of scratched the surface. Like, now that we've kind of gotten used to each other a bit, now I feel like we could really drop in. But anyway, this is what it has been, and I trust that it's exactly what it needs to be for each of us and for those listening. May it contain the medicine that, you know, we all need for whatever that is right now. So I wish you, like, you know, all the very, very best over the next few weeks, and may abundance of all sorts just flow easily to you from expected and unexpected ways. And yeah, hopefully there will be opportunities to, you know, collaborate in the future, whatever that might look like. It would be lovely to find a way to kind of, you know, maintain and continue this connection.
Yes, that would be lovely. I do think we have just scratched the surface, like you say. So yes, let's do a deep dive next time. Thank you.
Congratulations on your magical cat and its ability to control the internet.
Maybe she sensed I needed a break or something.
Wonderful. Well, I'm knocking my microphone. I'm going to stop recording now. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. So how was that for you? I hope that through listening to my conversation with Anna, you felt nourished and supported, that you perhaps were able to take a breath and just relax into the permission to completely be yourself. And I want to remind you that the links for the Creative Doer, Ignite, and the crowdfunding campaign are either beneath this if you're watching this in YouTube, or accompanying this if you're accessing it through my website. And do feel free to leave comments and share what you took from this conversation. Thank you. Bye.